Greetings everyone, I'm Mar. Once again, this is my opinion, as you can tell from the title up there, continuing my trek through the episodes of the classic 90s animated show, Batman the Animated Series. This is episode 10, and is the first two-parter we're going to deal with in this show. It's, of course, Two-Face Part 1. Now, this two-parter, now we've had some pretty decent episodes so far. You know, like probably one of the better ones is probably the pilot. This is where the show really starts to pick up steam a little bit for the most part. There's going to be some exceptions as we go along from when memory serves, but this is the very first great episode, if you want to call it that. And that's because it deals with Two-Face, and it shows one reason why this show is so memorable, and that is it takes what the comics did, reinvents it, and in ways makes it better. But we'll get into that in a little bit. This, of course, is based on a story by Alan Burnett, with a teleplay by Randy Rogel. And, of course, Kevin Altieri is in the director's chair, if I remember right. I don't have that in my note. Of course, in this episode, amongst the normal cast, we also got Murphy Cross, voiced by Grace. We got Robert Duquois voicing the Doctor, Linda Gray as Dr. Nora Crest. And, of course, always great to see, and in this case, her, John Vernon, voicing Rupert Thorne. And if I have my episodes in order right, I believe this is the first appearance of Rupert Thorne actually on screen when you watch a production order for this show. If you watch it in the air order, he's already appeared in one, but for our first appearance on him, this is good. And a little note here that the writers actually felt this is the first episode they did where everything gelled, and when you're watching the previous 9 and get to this one, you definitely feel that with how everything comes together. That's another reason why you want to watch stuff in production order. You kind of get that feeling. Now, the plot is that Harvey Dent is running for re-election, and like any politician, around the time that he is doing it, he is really showing the people of Gotham that he is doing stuff. And part of that is, as the district attorney, along with the Gotham City Police Department, he is orchestrating a raid on one of the businesses. In this case, it's an arms business that Rupert Thorne is using. Now, they do the raid, and these people that are in there are really trying to bring out the heavy artillery. They get a bazooka out. And I just love this scene where they're like, yeah, no one's going to be getting in here. Shot shows behind them. You see Batman come down in the shadows. I'm like, they forget about Batman. That's the fun thing about some of the dialogue in these episodes, is that you see just how stupid a lot of the common criminals are, and how Batman is able to even to do stuff here. And of course, Batman, he takes them out, and they run out of the building like, save us from Batman cops. It's a nice little funny moment. Now Batman, of course, takes off, letting Commissioner Gordon and Harvey Dent soak in the sunlight. You know, soak in the limelight with all of the press. And as they're doing that, one of the thugs kind of is countering what Harvey was just saying, because Harvey's like, I'm not going to arrest until I get that Rupert Thorne. Not in that voice, obviously, but... And then he pushes a button because he kicks mud at Harvey, gets his jacket, and it pisses Harvey off. And Harvey almost goes and kicks the crap out of him. They get him off him. But this is our first view in this episode that not all is right with Harvey Dent. The second time we see this is at an event for his re-election, where we see another scene of him being buddy-buddy with Bruce Wayne, which has been well established by this point in the show with Harvey's few cameos. But it's nice to see it again. And we're introduced to his fiancée, Grace. Which, of course, if you're watching a lot of Harvey's storylines, you're like, another fiancée. Yeah, first Poison Ivy, then that other one, now this. He really does rush into relationships and commit way too quickly. So there's not all there. Now, a button gets pushed there, and he makes a spectacle of himself in public. Partially because he finds out that the arrests that they made at that raid were all thrown out because this search warrant wasn't signed properly. Which I'm like, that kind of strikes me as the judge being on the take and then trying to come up with a stupid half-assed reason to throw stuff out. Which, given how much money Rupert Thorne is throwing around in these episodes, I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. Because I don't see Commissioner Gordon, especially working hand-in-hand with Harvey Dent, rushing in before there's a signed search warrant. And that's, of course, before the fact that they got opened fire on. At that point, they would not need a warrant. At that point, there's a crime in progress, and they just got attacked. So, yeah, definitely a judge on the take. Now, Grace and Bruce talk with Harvey like, hey, you need to get some help. We find out from Grace Harvey is seeking help. And we get to see a scene of Harvey Dent talking with Dr. Nora Crest in a psychological setting. You know, she's a shrink. I don't have it in my notes, but I believe this is the first scene in a family-friendly animated show that depicts someone going to a shrink. And I like that they do kind of hint that there is a little bit of a stigma about it. I mean, some people might say there still is now, but definitely in the 90s there still would have been. Now, of course, I'm going to be honest, I've been to a shrink before, but that was part of the treatment for someone with ADHD when you were growing up with it in the 90s. But it was more to help you deal with it. But I'm going to be honest, the main person that we saw, really wasn't the best person to talk with. It was more the secondary people that I was more comfortable talking with. Now, here, you can definitely see that Harvey is comfortable talking with Nora. And, you know, she does the thing where puts him out, talking to him, and has him bring out his other side that seems to come out in his fits of anger. And this is where we're introduced to Big Bad Harv, the dark side of him. And I love that Harvey's voice actor, Richard Morrow, he darkens his voice and makes it very gravelly when he goes from his normal one. It goes from like, he's talking like this when he's Harvey, but then once Big Bad Harv comes out, he really goes in low graveliness to where you really see he really means it. He's gonna hurt you. And I love the use of color and shadows once Big Bad Harv comes out. And just the way they draw his face when he's smirking, and the whole thing with the coin, we see that's where it is. And he almost does hurt Nora when he's talking about him, like, that goody two-shoes, I'm not going to let Dent take over. And when he snaps out of it, he's like, I did that? He's like, oh. Now, given that Rupert Thorne wants to get Harvey off his back no matter what, he sends in a couple of his goons. They find out about this, and they get their hands on Harvey's file. Now, Harvey does win re-election, and that night, Rupert calls him and says, hey, we got to have a meeting. It's either going to be with you or Big Bad Harv. And he tells them that he has Dent's whole file. It's not just the stuff there, it's the fact that when he was younger, there were times where Harvey had fits of anger, including one where he punched somebody that was annoying him. And Harvey, of course, heard the boy got put in the hospital, and he's like, oh no, I'm not gonna hurt anybody out of anger, even if justified again. Now, it turns out the boy was in the hospital for something unrelated, but Harvey didn't know that at the time. And you can see from that Harvey tried to repress his anger, and this with everything that's going on now, all the stuff he's been through that we've seen, stuff going on now in this episode, that he's having a lot more of a harder time repressing that. Now, as I can tell you, as someone with ADHD, where one of the symptoms can be slight fits of anger, depending on how you handle it. Not with everybody, I know, because I know some people with ADHD that don't really get that, but I can tell you frustration leading to anger. Trying to suppress that, especially if you're in a more work setting, is hard but doable. But there are times where it's a little bit harder to do it than others. So I have to applaud Harvey as a character in this show for being able to repress it so long, especially with what we've seen him do. I mean, his fiance freaking tried to kill him over other stuff, so there's that. Here, the fact that he gets through all this and only snaps a little bit a couple times, you gotta applaud him a little bit, especially since he was going for help. But all this stuff with Rupert, this is his breaking point, and he crashes out. Or should I say, Big Bad Harv crashes out. And I just love this scene, how it's animated and the voice acting, especially when Harvey leans in and goes, you're talking to the wrong Harvey. Then grabs Rupert Thorne and throws him. That's the thing to talk about with this episode and the next one, is that we see a lot of characters having super-ish strength where they pick up someone and ragdoll toss them. Now, considering that Rupert Thorne is a very rotund individual, and this is coming from a rotund individual, so I'm the expert on that. The fact that he picked him up like it was nothing and threw him, it's like, ugh. That's about his strength there. Now, it could also be that Thorne wasn't expecting it, so it made it a little easier. But, you know, comic book show. And of course, get a little fight, and Harvey chases him, which leads to him getting his face burnt. Now, normally in the comics, it was acid thrown in his face while in court. Here, they made it, there was an explosion and it burnt his face, and it was a chemical explosion. It's an interesting change, especially with some of the stuff they changed before, because I know I kind of skirted around it, but with everything that they're going through here, they make Harvey's transformation into Two-Face to give it a little bit more depth. That instead of, oh, my face is half and half, I must be a criminal now. It's all the psychological issues he's already dealing with, crashing out because of Rupert, and then this accident, all those things together, it causes him to crash it even further, and he becomes Two-Face. It causes his psyche to just snap. And now, one thing that the show really kind of sells with subtext, more so in the next episode, is that technically by this point that means there are 3 personalities. There's his normal Harvey Dent self, there's Big Bad Harv, which is basically all of the darker impulses of him, and then the thing that we see creates Two-Face, which is not quite Harvey Dent, but it's not quite over the edge enough to where it's going to be Big Bad Harv. Now, we'll go a little bit into that in the second episode, because that's what we're going to see. He's kind of straddling the line, and the whole thing about justice and all that. But he's not going to jump down. Here's what I mean. Normal Harvey will not want to attack you. Big Bad Harv will try to murder you. Two-Face, he will do what the coin says is just. If it's walk away, it's walk away. If it's kill you, it's kill you. So it's right in the center. And of course, he does have a more gravelly voice than normal Harvey, but it's not as dark and gravelly. And in one of the interviews, Altieri even pointed out this. So that's where I actually got that from. Now, Harvey, of course, is taken to the hospital, bandages. The doctor's saying, yeah, we're going to operate him. Of course, Bruce being a tender friend, he's going to foot the bill. And the thing that really adds to this is that one of the first people that finds him is Batman, of course, Bruce. And when he sees it, that's where we get that line, Harvey, no. Now, Two-Face, Harvey, eventually sees his face. And the way they did this scene, it was intended to be a callback to the scene in Batman 89 where Joker sees himself in a mirror. And you really do get that callback on there. And in both cases, them seeing their face in the aftermath is what causes them to fully snap and go over the edge. For different type of snaps, but here, it really pushes him over the edge and he becomes Two-Face. And the add to it, the first time we see him proper is when Grace sees him. And I just love that. He comes into the hallway, Grace looks at him, and he looks, he turns, you see his face, and the way it's animated, delectable. And of course she faints because she's in shock, even though she's been told there's scarring. And then this goes to an end of the episode. And it is a good first parter. I would say of the 2 episodes, this one is probably the stronger of the 2, but it is a good first part. Now, the second part, which will be next time, it does end this story in a way that is very fitting for the character. And it also makes you wonder, okay, we got Two-Face's introduction. How are later episodes of Two-Face going to go? Now, I don't think any of the other Two-Face episodes quite top what they do with these 2. And of course, by the time we get to the new Batman Adventures, kind of makes you wonder, huh? But it's a good way to introduce the character. And this is what Kevin Altieri actually had to say about it that I actually have in my notes. It was better than anything the comics had ever done on that character. And just from what little I mentioned, it is very true. And if you think about it, it's probably the best Two-Face thing that they ever did until probably we got the Dark Knight. I'd say this is still better than Dark Knight, but Dark Knight was another good handle on the character. Definitely better than how they handled him in the Schumacher films. Although I will say, there is something that's going to be in the next episode that definitely strikes me as something that they need to call back to in Batman Forever, but that'll be next time. Till then.